are many ways to die. Jesus' death was exposed publicly, hanging on a cross.
Knowing that everything was already completed, in order to fulfill the scripture, Jesus said, "I am thirsty." A jar full of sour wine was nearby, so the soldiers soaked a sponge in it, placed it on the hyssop branch, and held it up to his lips. When he had received the sour wine, Jesus said, "It is completed." Bowing his head, he gave up his life.
There are many ways to die. Bruce was 48 years old, and he was sitting in Dr. Sorensen's office on one of those exam tables, wearing the little gown that you wear for the exams. When the doctor returned, he said matter-of-factly, "Bruce, do you know what ALS is?" "ALS," Bruce said. "Yes, I think I know what it is." He was pretty certain he knew what it was, but he was hoping he was wrong. The doctor continued, "It's also known as Lou Gehrig's disease. There's no cure. In all likelihood, you have 1 to 3 years to live." The doctor paused for a moment. "I would advise that you go home and get your affairs in order." Bruce was dazed. He looked at the doctor for a sign, something. Warmth, concern, humor, anything. And there was nothing. Like crucifixion, ALS victims die from asphyxiation when paralysis spreads to the diaphragm. In simple terms, the disease gradually destroys the muscles throughout your body. Your brain is unaffected, which means you watch helplessly as your body collapses one step at a time. Bruce was from Minnesota, but he had worked for a local guy for a lot of years. He was Tom Watson's caddy and friend. And they played on the golf course, which is right outside the window. I was actually going to see if I could see any golfers, even on a day like today. Sometimes they're out there, even when it gets cold. But they played out here. Tom Watson was internationally known for golf. And Bruce caddied for him for 15 years. Now, just as there are many ways to die, there are many ways to live, too. Bruce got an offer from Greg Norman, another golfer, to come and be his caddy. So Tom told Bruce, "You owe it to yourself if you have the chance to work for someone else who can make you more money and go work for him. In fact, if the chance comes up, I want you to take it because it would be the best thing for you." And so there were a few years where Bruce went and worked for Greg Norman. Now, I'm not a big golfer, but there's a big difference between Tom Watson and Greg Norman. They have very different approaches to life, and you can see it in their golf game. Now, as it happens in life and in golf, you sometimes find yourself in a very bad place. And it's going to be tough to get out. Now, with Greg Norman, everything was first class. Big time, all the way. 5-star hotels, private jets, fancy cars, the best restaurants. Greg never did anything quietly. And when he found himself with one of those nearly impossible shots, when he's out on the golf course, he would see that shot and he would start cursing. And he would carry on yelling at the universe with all his lot in life, with this bad lie. Now that is one way of living, of facing adversity. Tom Watson's a different sort of person, though. He's a whole lot more humble. That the way that Bruce put it, when Tom would find himself in one of those incredibly difficult spots, he'd get this little gleam in his eyes. And he'd say, "Watch this," as he prepared to do something amazing.
Early in the morning of the first day of the week, while it was still dark, Mary Magdalene came to the tomb and saw that the stone had been taken away from the tomb. She ran to Simon Peter and the other disciple, the one whom Jesus loved, and said, "They have taken the Lord from the tomb, and we don't know where they've put him." Peter and the other disciple left to go to the tomb. They were running together, but the other disciple ran faster than Peter and was the first to arrive at the tomb. Bending down to take a look, he saw the linen cloths lying there, but he didn't go in. Following him, Simon Peter entered the tomb and saw the linen cloths lying there. He also saw the face cloth that had been on Jesus' head. It wasn't with the other cloths, but was folded up in its own place. Then the other disciple, the one who arrived at the tomb first, also went inside. He saw and believed.
God's Messiah had been executed, dead, and placed in a tomb. For his followers, all the hope, all the power that they had witnessed in him was gone. But God's way of living, of facing adversity, is a little bit more like Tom Watson's style. God's style is watch this. There are many ways to live. And the truth is that you get to choose. That is such a blessing. You get to choose how to live the days that you've got. And you can live this life afraid of losing people, of not having enough money, losing health insurance or your job. You can live that way. A lot of people do. Easter is another way of living. And that's what I offer you today. A different way of living in love. The people that you choose to live with, the people that you bind your life to in the days that you've got, has a huge effect on the quality of your life. Bruce sat dazed in that doctor's office when he got the news that he needed to get his affairs set in order, when he got the diagnosis of ALS. He had spent some years working, and he made good money working with Greg Norman. But what he realized is that the quality of his life hadn't improved. He missed his friend Tom. He missed the watch this joy of living and playing that they had together. So he chose to return to the relationship that fed his soul and caused him to live better. It's amazing what happens when you make choices like that. When you choose to love faithfully. After reuniting with Tom, Bruce rediscovered the Christian hope that no matter what incredibly difficult place you find yourself, God will never let pain and suffering be the last word. And so as news about the diagnosis of ALS began to spread, Greg Norman called Bruce, got on the phone, and he asked about what medical options are there. And they're scant. And just like in golf, Greg Norman, who had called Bruce to comfort him, got despondent and angry with the situation they found themselves in. And he told Bruce finally on the phone, "Enough, I can't listen anymore." And he got off the phone. Whom you choose to bind your life to matters a lot. It was a lot different when Bruce told his friend Tom. They cried. But it didn't stop there. Tom told his friend, "We're not done yet." Bruce spent the next year of his life living it to the fullest. Days after the diagnosis, Tom's wife, Hillary, suggested a plan. They called it Hillary's plan. The plan was that in 3 weeks from that day, Bruce would marry the love of his life, Marcia. They were going to a golf tournament in Hawaii, and they just decided right after the tournament they were going to get married in Hawaii. Whom you choose to bind your life to in this life matters. Bruce's friend is convinced that Marcia isn't really one of us, that she's an angel sent from heaven to get Bruce through all this. And so it started in that year that Bruce had. He found a new doctor. And this doctor gave Bruce and Marcia the advice they needed to hear, even though it was very hard to hear. Don't waste your time. Live your life to the fullest, as long as you can. That year, that next year, Bruce lived passionately with Easter hope. There are many ways to live the life that you're given. Easter is God's message that we can live the days that we have free of fear with people who are in our lives, who we bind our lives to, that will go into us into the most difficult places and offer hope and love. It is the message that no tough spot, even death itself, will ever be the last word, because God always has something special coming. 2 weeks ago this week, Tom Watson, our Kansas City hero, played in the last Masters golf tournament that he'll play in. And it marked 10 years since Bruce's body died. As he got to the 13th hole, the place where Bruce would always stop for lunch, Tom did something. He didn't tell anybody. There was no fanfare. He just walked over, and you can see he laid a sandwich, an egg sandwich, down on the 13th green to honor his friends. It was a sandwich made of Easter eggs, the sign of new life. True love never dies. What life are you choosing? With whom are you choosing to bind your life? Today we have 2 little ones whose parents are making a choice to introduce them to the way of Christ's living. A life of Easter hope. A life of celebrating every moment from now until your life's finale. Because there's always more to come. Watch this.